Hi everyone, I'm Irina Kostaka from the Daily Collegiate, and I'm here with Michael Suchecki and Sean Bowe. They're running for President and Vice President of the SGA, and I have 6 questions for them to answer this afternoon, so let's get started. Okay, so the first question is, why do you want to run? And the time's going to start now.
Absolutely. So the reason Sean and I got in this race back in the spring and then decided we wanted to do it again this fall is because ultimately we saw that students don't really have a voice in student government. And it seems counterintuitive if you think about it, that student government is elected to represent their voices. But when it comes down to it, they're not, these representatives are not accountable to the students that elected them. And that comes down to the fact that they don't actually have to be transparent with or consult them. They don't have to communicate with them, and they don't have to collaborate with the administration to actually deliver on their priorities because big egos keep getting in the way of actual progress for students. So ultimately, we see our three-pronged approach as addressing accountability, communication, and collaboration. And any issue, be it sustainability, be it affordability, be it racism on campus, any one of those are not just campaign pillars like we see from others. They are instead woven out throughout kind of the accountability, throughout the communication, and throughout the collaboration. And using that framework, we can make substantive progress and changes on many, if not all, of the issues facing campus. And Sean, would you like to speak for a second?
Yeah, so like Michael said, we kind of waltzed into the SGA at the same time, and we actually attended the first meeting as just community members, the exact same meeting. And we both noticed the same thing, although we didn't connect with each other, but we both noticed that we walked into a room full of tension, and the tension was very personal, and not to us, but like it was very personal as in like people didn't get work done, and the work that they were doing was more personal political rather than undergraduate student body geared. And I always questioned it, and I questioned around. I asked my friends who were on the campus before me, because I'm a transfer student as well. I asked them, what is the student government? And I get numerous answers ranging from, oh, I don't know, to it feels like a cult to me. And I was just like, okay, so let's get to the bottom of that. And that's been my primary motivation of being in student government and running with Michael, is to change that and fix that and resolve it.
Okay, great. And the next question is kind of going off of that. How do you think the SGA most needs to improve?
There are so many ways. Ooh, I love that question. So I think Sean really was touching on something in that last answer there, in that there is not enough reflection on our duty to serve the student body. Because ultimately what we've seen the past couple of years is we've had administrations, primarily on the executive side, with the president, with the cabinet, where there's not been a willingness to actually force themselves to be accountable to students and to go put their ideas out for critique. Because what we've seen is we've had a lot of leaders pursuing pet projects, which again are generally very important projects in the long term, but that can't be the focus in the place of short-term progress for students. You can't solely focus on the long-term vision and then not deliver substantive change for the students that you're supposed to be serving now. So what we essentially are trying to do is, through making ourselves more accountable, putting ourselves out there through not only our policies, but we are not actually running on anything that we cannot deliver in our year. We understand we have a shorter term than most, or we would have a shorter term than most, or will, I should say. And we understand that there are more limitations than usual due to the fact that we're remote. But all of our plans are things that are tangible and deliverable, and each of them are backed up by bullet points of who we need to talk to, how we need to get it done, and all of them are things that we have the power to do without the need of bringing in faculty senate or drumming up the support. But we also want to be accountable to students at the same time. So through our town halls, through our open office hours every week, through our open door policies, we'll make sure that each and every one of our policies is subject to consultation with students, because we don't want to do anything that they don't want. But we actually are running on that, but also have the vision on what we should be doing while we're working for them. Sean?
Nothing to add there.
Wonderful. So then the next question, perfect segue, is what are your policy initiatives that you are running on, and how are you going to ensure one thing specifically that the SGA is anti-racist.
Sure. I don't mean to keep taking the mic from Sean, but I think it's especially important that I take on this question as I'm not a person of color. And unfortunately, none of the current presidential candidates are, which I think is an issue in terms of the accessibility of the position and getting into SGA. But I do think that ultimately it comes back to the fact that we do not do enough to actually lift up the voices of people of color through the SGA. We're an incredibly white body. We are primarily made up of white, privileged political science majors. And don't get me wrong, I am, one of my majors is poli-sci, so I get that, but that's not representative. So what we ultimately have is we have, through the lens of accountability, collaboration, and communication, ideas on not only lifting up the work of the Racial Justice Coalition, which is a group of wonderful activists this summer that pulled together some fantastic ideas for what UMass can do to better support those voices directly, but also going steps further. I actually had a meeting this morning at 8 a.m. with Vice Chancellor Bill Brady, as well as a liaison for the Vice Chancellor of Diversity and Inclusion, because I am working on and have been working this summer on actual SGA legislation to make sure the university is accountable to students and its diversity numbers, to actually have to publish an annual diversity report so that students can see whether they're represented in their faculty, what the changes are, and then hold the university accountable when they're not being appropriately represented. So that is just one example. We have any number of other policies that directly impact them, including, or directly impact people of color, I should say, that include making sure we're actually promoting vacancies in Senate and the cabinet to the entire campus, as opposed to just subsections of it who already know who SGA is and what we do, as well as making sure that we're lifting up cultural centers and CMAS, which is particularly given short shrift every time that there are funding and budgetary changes from the university. You know, there are any number of problems to deal with in this realm. But again, I think what's really important is that we recognize it's not just a policy initiative to serve students of color. It needs to be the backbone of everything that we do. Thank you. And sorry, Sean.
Yes, so question number 4 then is, why do you think your ticket is the best team and why should people vote for you?
Sean, this is you.
All right. I have over time come to have more confidence in actually genuinely like saying why our ticket is the best, and I genuinely do believe our ticket is the best because both Michael and I come from very different backgrounds and experiences, and even though our experiences intersected in SGA, our experiences of the SGA while we were working within the SGA is very different, because I have had the experience and privilege to work behind the scenes while he's been upfront and developing further his communication skills. Me, I've just been working behind the scenes and making sure that the backbone of the SGA is continuously evaluated as to meet the will of the students. And
that's included a lot of work, and Sean is going to be too humble for this, but he essentially helped define a lot of the processes for RSO consultation, because he was one of kind of the founding group of members of the University Registry Oversight Committee, or Undergraduate Registry Oversight Committee, that serves RSOs. He helped the impeachment process in both the research and presentation of the articles of impeachment against the former president, who has gone on to make an endorsement in this race. And ultimately, it comes down to the fact that we not only have the legislative experience to deliver, but we have the vision to set UMass on the right course into the future. And I do feel that no matter who is elected, incredible progress will be able to be made in this next year. But the difference is if you spread yourself too thin, none of that incredible progress will be noticeable to students. And that's what we fear, is we want to make sure that we are focusing on the future, but not doing a disservice to the students that we have now in doing so. So I think that's what really sets us apart here, is we can deliver in the short term and the long term, as well as the fact that we have the vision to help guide us to that future.
Both Michael and I are very present focused, and we have such balancing personalities in order to do so, in which we won't be even like spreading ourselves too thin, because we can bring the future to the present and ensure that we can deliver, because that's what our platform was designed to do.
And we're very, as Sean says, we're very different personalities, but I actually really appreciate the fact that I am surrounded by Sean, but also my other friends, that I've made an environment where it's okay to disagree with me, and I want you to disagree with me, because I want to have different thoughts. I want to have my arguments have holes poked into them so that I can choose what's best for students and what's best for moving forward. I don't need to be right. I just need to have the best next step to take. So, Sean and I have disagreed on many points throughout SGA, but it's always on the process, not on the solution. And I think that's what's key, is even though our visions line up, our steps to get there are so different sometimes, which is really a wonderful groundswell of ideas there for it to bounce off and build off of.
It's a phenomenon.
Yeah, so as you guys know, we're in a very unique, unprecedented semester, and who knows, maybe spring as well. So hopefully not, but we don't know. So how do you plan to support the entire student body, including students in different time zones, students in a variety of living situations, different access to the internet, disabilities, or just other challenges or vulnerabilities that are being faced by students given the pandemic?
If I may start with this, back when COVID started, before we were all given the notice to go home, and if we left anything on campus, we would have to come back later, right before all that happened. I remember when one of my professors was very stressed out about how to go about this, because he never taught anything online before. He never had to convert anything to an online format. So I went up to him, I asked him, is there anything I could do? And I suggested to him to create a Google form to send out to the entire class of what they think is the best method of carrying out an online format. And I taught him how to do that. And essentially, I ended up getting the entire class 2 paper extensions and an asynchronous format, because I knew that there were some students in the class that were in different time zones and that had to be accommodated for. And if I have confidence now in saying that if it weren't for me going to him and convincing him to not have regularly scheduled Zoom live sessions, then those students' needs would not have been met.
Yeah, I would very much like to echo that, is that even though some students learn better in asynchronous versus synchronous classes, vice versa, it's important that students who are not able to attend live have the opportunity to still be a participating member of class, because we can't be dismissing our international students. We can't be dismissing students with not appropriate kind of internet connections. We need to be supporting those students with more accessible technologies and IT support when available, as well as expanding the laptop lending program that the university has for students without the accessibility of devices to use. We need to continue the academic rights advocacy that started this summer when the university originally said that there will be no different pass-fail policy for the semester. We were able to rise up as a student body and send over 800 or 900 emails to the faculty senate secretary, who was not thrilled, but ultimately it worked, because we now have a policy that better supports students in where they are now. And ultimately, that's the kind of advocacy that we need, because we can't just have pigeonhole ourselves into one idea or kind of spread ourselves too thin to actually explore other opportunities. We need to be able to expand and pay attention anywhere that needs the attention. But once we find that solution, we need to narrowly focus forward and plow ahead on it.
Great. And last question for today is, if you don't win the election, how will you continue to hold the SGA and campus accountable to support its students?
Yeah, there's a good chance that we might not. And ultimately, that's not anything to do with the campaign. That's not anything to do with our vision or our supporters. That just has something to do with the fact that, we have 2 very qualified opponents that I have great respect for. All of us came together this spring and have come together again this fall, and we still are pledging to all come together and share ideas, platforms, and support, because we want to make sure that whomever ends up in this role is the most supported, most capable, and most prepared president that we can have, because this, of all times, is an incredibly difficult time to try to take on this mantle. I think what's important here is that we all are still dedicated to the SGA and dedicated to the student body. None of us are going away if this doesn't work. Be it stubbornness or be it commitment, we're all coming back in some capacity or another in SGA, be it in Senate, be it in the executive cabinet, be it hopefully in the presidency. But our vision for change and our vision to support students doesn't go away even if we do. Obviously, I hope we don't have to, so I'd encourage you all to go check out our campaign at Check SGA on Instagram, as well as voting for us at the link in our bio or on Campus Pulse. But this isn't the last you're going to see of us.
Okay, yeah, that was the last question I had for you guys. So thank you so much for being here and taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Us.
Of course.